Hello, everybody. Let me introduce myself. My name is Diego Rinallo, and I'm marketing professor at CACSARC Business School, which is located in France. Over the past few years, I've been working with other colleagues from different disciplines on how to turn marketing thought and tools into heritage sensitive instruments that can contribute to safeguard and transmit to the next generation intangible cultural heritage. This is the first of four brief lectures on this topic, and the introductory one, will go through some of the key concepts that need to be borne in mind for heritage-based businesses such as yours. So first, let me introduce briefly the notion of intangible cultural heritage, which of course is familiar to most of you. So uh, ICH, Intangible Cultural Heritage, is a notion championed by UNESCO. Its definition can be found in the 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of ICH, and you'll find it on screen. I will not read it, but let me say that the starting point for a serious debate over the possible commercialization of ICH is that there's no assumption that all elements of communities' cultural heritage should be put on the market. It's the choice of the community. So sometimes it is, sometimes commercialization is a part of the tradition, sometimes it's not, sometimes you want to protect it from commercialization. So you need to bear in mind that cultural heritage has value which is beyond its economic value. It has a social value, it has a cultural value, and as such, its manifestation shouldn't really always put in the market as for profit in the context of for-profit initiatives. So sometimes it's just the communities that organize themselves to volunteer work informally or formally through the forms of associations. Sometimes it can be sponsored by local community members, can be sponsored and supported financially by cultural institutions, the states, local authorities, and so on and so forth. So it has value that goes beyond economic value. It can be a source of identity and pride for a community, and there can be many other mechanisms beyond the sales, the offering of products, services, experiences, events, etc., in the exchange for a price. Okay, so having said that, let's move to this idea. ICH are the roots. They go beyond the market, they go beyond economic systems, but they can be transformed into various kind of market offerings. The roots are always the same, maybe they change slowly. The specific manifestation of the offerings that are put in the market are ever changing as they adapt to new lifestyle, new market needs, and so on and so forth. So very often, this metaphor of the tree, the market offerings are considered the fruits, apples, pears, bananas, peaches, whatever. These fruits change and they can assume different forms. So let me go through the main typologies. Products, tangible, physical products like arts and crafts products, but they can be services of many kind. They can be tourist attractions, museums, other kind of experiential showcase of cultural heritage. They can be trainings, schools, workshops, courses of many kind, on site or sometimes online, as it happened a lot during the pandemics. People are interested in learning heritage related skills. Then it's event. Some of these can be cultural events such as festivals, exhibitions, and so on and so forth. Sometimes they are commercial events like periodic marketplaces, trade fairs, bazaars, shops, galleries, shopping areas, malls, and so on and so forth. So sometimes I will call all of these market offerings as products in a broad sense. Okay, so I will use these two terms interchangeably, and all these kind of market offerings can benefit from marketing expertise. Okay, so this is why I'm going to share some of these aspects with you. Let me introduce a formal definition of marketing. Marketing, this way of calling these series of practices, come from United States. So this is why I'm offering a definition which was proposed by the American Marketing Association. So, marketing is defined as the set of processes, another term would be practices, activities, for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings, products but not only, that have a value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. So, even for Coca-Cola, Nike, when they talk about marketing, they talk about value. And I think that for heritage-based businesses, value is very important because it goes beyond the economic value, but it includes also social and cultural value. And as you can see, there's this idea of value for society as at large, so it's society as a whole. Okay, and this is particularly important for heritage-based business because you perform an important social and cultural function of contributing to your activities to safeguard, enrich, and transmit tangible cultural heritage to the next generation. So, as I will explain in a sec, sometimes people coming from a cultural background are very sensitized to the risks of over commercialization. So they do not consider really that can be commercialization without over commercialization. So the goal of this series of lecture, this introductory one and the other that will follow, is to provide you with a practical, actionable knowledge on how to use marketing tools in a way that can be really heritage sensitive, that can contribute to safeguard rather than destroying cultural heritage, which is one of the risks of excessive commercialization. So this is the plan. I will start with some introductory notion. In the next section, I will be introducing two very fundamental notions in marketing, that of branding and segmentation. And finally, the last two sessions, I will complete by offering insights on the so-called 4 Ps of marketing, which are about products, which is also a word for innovation, products and this broaden meaning of market offering, place, which is also a term for distribution, price setting, and promotion. Okay, I will go back to this notion of heritage sensitive marketing now. So there is abundant evidence in anthropology, in tourist studies, and in many other disciplines that sometimes too much commercialization, too much marketing, too much applying the rules of the market and economic system to cultural heritage can have many negative effects. So sometimes it's really a demonization of marketing, which is seen as a corrupting forces. So the worst scenario, the is that eventually what is put on the market loses its meaning for society. So it becomes as a shop or as something that has only meaning for tourists, as a cheap souvenir, and loses its meaning for the local community. Okay, and we do not want that happens. Okay, the counterpoint is that, however, there are also cases which maybe are not so well known and studied, in which traditional practices have died because of lack of awareness and interest, not only from the clients but also from the new generation of practitioners themselves. It happens that new people, new generation, are not really interested in practices their parents or grandparents' activities. They want something new rather than sticking to the old ways. It's normal, and sometimes it happens. So, by turning some of this heritage into a business and making profit out of that, this can be a way to raise awareness and interest, and not only for customers but also for the new generation. So it can be a win-win kind of situation. Okay. So, this is a point. Marketing and commercialization can also, if done in appropriate manners, without the excesses that people warn about, can be a good thing for the survival and transmission of intangible cultural heritage. This is a sort of complex slide, and I'm sure we will provide it with a way to go through, but let me also make some points. I will not read through everything, but just look at the big building blocks of this chart. I will start on the left by saying that not everything that is a traditional skill, traditional practice, and so on and so forth, should be put on the market. Communities can decide that it's not appropriate. Some knowledge, sometimes knowledge is best kept secret. It's not for outsiders. It's definitely not for clients. You cannot buy it with money. Sometimes some practices are special. They have a very important sacred, spiritual, religious value. So it's only for members of the community. And there can be many other reasons why you decide that it's not appropriate to charge money to turn it into a product or service. And this is totally fine. The starting point is not that all knowledge, all practices that constitute ICH should be put on the market. The point is that the communities should decide for themselves if they want to. But if they want to, they can. Okay? And of course, we are not naive. There can be multiple points of view within communities about whether it's okay or not and how this should be done. But it's important that these different points of view emerge and the communities have a healthy, open debate about that. And remember, there are many other ways that are not market-based to turn practical skills, tangible cultural heritage skills, into something that is available beyond the laws of the market, such as gift giving, state support, public support, volunteer work, NGO work, and so on and so forth. Let's go focus on these other aspects. So before I talked about the risk of excessive or over commercialization, you may have found some of these manifestations in your own communities. So products or services that are only wanted by tourists and that lost meaning for the local communities. Sometimes there's third parties who produce cheap versions of products without being members of the community, and this can decrease the reputation of the heritage for everybody. These are worst case scenarios, and we do not want any of that. And sometimes some marketing can be used also to avoid that a third party culturally and economically appropriate a community's cultural heritage. On the other hand, there is what is called under-commercialization. There's no interest. People forgot the skills. Society changes. Something is lost. Sometimes it's lost forever. And if that happened, it's sad. But again, if economic reasons can sometimes, the prospect of making a living out of that can help entrepreneurs to revitalize lost skills and make it available again for the community. This is how important is the social and cultural function that heritage businesses can accomplish. And in between these two excesses of over and under commercialization, too much and not enough commercialization, is what we called heritage sensitive marketing. So there's some money that is made, that there is some profit, but this creates a win-win situation, a virtuous circle, so that there's interest in the community, there is interest in demand, in consumers and tourists, in distributors, even in cultural institutions, so that people who decide to do that can make a living out of that. Prices are correct, they are okay, people can make a decent living out of heritage skills, and these contribute to a transmission to the next generation. So remember, the sense is that you do not have to, but if you want to, not too much. And not enough in between these two extremes. This is what we call heritage sensitive marketing or commercialization. The second key message from this introductory section is that there are always two levels of marketing that you should consider: an individual level of an individual business, but also a collective level of different businesses, individuals, organizations beyond the economic sector, like a cultural institution, a tourism management organization, the civil society, that cooperate together. We show here visually with this example of the big fish, which is terrifying external forces, can if it goes after individual fish, he wins. But if the small fish cooperate together, eventually they can achieve much more that would be possible from an individual point of view alone. Okay, so the idea behind this chart is that you should cooperate, because there is a real strength in numbers. And let me go back to marketing. Traditional market is sort of individualistic. So there's this idea that there's a zero-sum game. So if I win, you lose. If you win, I'm losing. Because there's, if I sell something to a tourist, then you will not be able to do the same. And this can create problems in community, tensions and conflicts. However, this idea of zero-sum games, this idea of a finite market, is not correct. If you think of other heritage businesses and members of your community as competitors, rivals, worse enemies to be defeated, you are not going to achieve a lot, because in heritage and in many other contexts, by joining forces, there's a real strength. You can achieve so much more, and the market can grow and grow and grow and grow, and you can find your niche, you can find the space for everybody to not only survive but thrive. This may be can look like a fairy tale, but there's some truth into that. And heritage communities, as a matter of fact, even if sometimes there are tensions, but as a matter of fact, they cooperate already. There's a lot of informal exchanges. Sometimes it's open cooperation, sometimes it's just you're part of the same communities, so you influence each other. So somebody has an idea, you imitate. There's this free flowing of idea, knowledge, practices, exchanges, emulation, and so on and so forth. But if you bring this cooperation to the next level, for example, by forming organization for collective marketing, you can achieve so much more. And my recommendation is to find ways of cooperating between artists or businesses, but also cross-sectoral kind of cooperation. You can cooperate with municipalities, with public actor, with the tourism actor, cultural institution, suppliers, distributors, museums, and so on and so forth. And really, you exploit the synergies. The total effect from this cooperation is superior, is greater than the sum of individual contributions. And bear this in mind as we will continue with the next lecture. Marketing concepts such as those that I will introduce very soon, such as branding, differentiation, and segmentation, can contribute everybody to find their market space, so that eventually there is a collaboration more than competition, and each is a piece of the puzzle that contribute to this great plan of enriching the tradition, improving its reputation, and giving more than you receive to benefit your sons, daughters, and descendants. Let me make an example. It's an example from India, specifically from a state of India called West Bengal. We worked with artists who are beautiful, who make beautiful paintings in the form of scrolls, like the young lady on the right side of my chart, and they also sing. These artists are called patwas or chitrakar, and they already formed, before we worked with them, an organization, a collective called Chitrataru. And we realized that we needed this dual level, individual marketing and collective marketing. So we helped them to create a collective website presenting the tradition as a whole, with all information that were not easy to find otherwise. So now you have just one website where everybody, tourists and art galleries, stores, and distributors can find information about that. And this is creating a lot of impact in raising the collective awareness about the cultural value of this tradition. But then we also worked on the individual level to empower members of this community to be able to do their own individual marketing, for example, through social media or digital marketing. So you see, the individual and the collective can work together, and the sum is greater than the individual parts. So my conclusion is that, just to recap, first, that marketing can and should be heritage sensitive, and that as a takeaway, you should think of ways for your businesses to cooperate with other businesses, association, NGOs, institutions of all kind. There's strength in numbers. Second key message is that your business has roots in traditional knowledge and skills that you inherited from your ancestors. So think of these as the metaphor of the tree, the roots. You can be part of this chain of transmission to the next generation. So try to consider that through your activities you can create an asset for future generation that can benefit from it, like you yourself benefited from it. And this is the second message. The third message is that no business is an island. This is true in general, particularly in the context of ICH. So think of ways to cooperate together informally or formally through collective organization. So I thank you for your attention, and I'll see you very soon with the next lecture.